Well, I've got spare parts from my last broken heart. Somehow more than what I had to start. Yeah, I've got spare parts. I tried to fix it best I remembered it. I hope it runs when I fire it up, 'cause I got spare parts. So if you see something that you might need, anything you can use, what's left of it might be a perfect fit, 'cause I got spare parts. Took a piece of you, like lovers often do. I'll try to make it good as new, 'cause I got spare parts. So if you see something that you might need, anything you can use, what's left of it might be the perfect fit, 'cause I've got spare parts. What's left of it might be the perfect fit, 'cause I've got spare.
Live and in person here from Epping, New Hampshire, home of three of New Hampshire's governors, guys by the name of Morrow, Plummer, and Prescott. Politicking with Mr. B. You want it, you got it, whether you want it or not. I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. And what a day we've had here in Epping, New Hampshire. Had some rain come through, but it was only a couple of few cloud bursts here and there. But otherwise, very pleasant, very cool, sort of very almost early, dare I say, fallish type weather is going on around here. Not sure what's happening, but apparently they're saying it's going to warm up on us again. But Mother Nature giving us a little test of things going on over here. Before I go any further with any other pleasantries and this and that's and whatnots, whatever else, we have our sacred oath, our duty that we need to do over here. Mr. Blazeman, will you please run up the colors, because we got to get this show on the road. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And when I say all, I mean all, tall, short, fat, thin, no matter what you are, no matter what color you are, or where you come, or how you talk with, or if you even talk with the Almighty. It's your business, whatever else. Protected by the work and the gifts and the sacrifices made by our military service personnel and our first responders, our police, fire, EMS, and so forth. We will get undying gratitude we will give to these people because they deserve it. And today we have a show that is strictly about, it's all about the people who serve and have served. And apparently there are some things going on that people are having a tough time getting the services that they earned and they deserve to have, ladies and gentlemen. And that is just a sick, sad thing that we have to sit here and talk about this. There are some cases where there are people, those military personnel who did not come home, but their widows and their children are supposed to be receiving services, and they're not. They're supposed to be receiving assistance, and they're not. And there are people who did come home. They served their country, did their things, and they are entitled to the benefits of veteran services, VA, and whatever else. And they're wringing their hands and pulling their hair out because they can't get the services either. I spoke with a fellow earlier today, a fellow who works here in Epping, New Hampshire, at our transfer station. Gentleman served. He went through tours of Vietnam, and he spent 19 years in the reserves after his service, and he has not been able to get services from the VA until somehow or another he was able to get a hold of Gene Shaheen, and Gene Shaheen got a hold of him and said, let's go on this day. And guess what? As soon as this gentleman showed up with Gene Shaheen, suddenly the VA doors opened up for him. This is not the way things should be happening. That having been said, we have a gentleman with us tonight who is a veterans agent from Massachusetts. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please let us welcome in Ken Mckay. Mr. Blazeman, you want to bring him in over here? Mr. Mckay, I don't have a hat on, but I doff my hat to you anyway for your services. Definitely a debt that I could never possibly repay to you. And it's so many like yourself. I want to thank you very, very much. Why don't you go ahead and tell us where you're from and a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm originally from Massachusetts. You'll notice by the lack of Oz as I speak tonight. Currently live in central New Hampshire, Lakes region. Yeah, I commute over 100 miles each way to work. So I can help the veterans and help the widows.
Wow. There's a fellow, I don't know if you may have heard the name or not. I used to live in a town called Winchendon, Massachusetts. And in Winchendon, Massachusetts, there's a veterans cemetery that went in there, and it was named after a fellow by the name of Charles Grout. And I actually got to know the fellow. He was a World War II veteran who and he told me the story that when he was in his service, he was out on some godforsaken island in the South Pacific somewhere. And he said when he was there, he said every morning he got up, he said, if I ever get off this damn island, I'm gonna dedicate my life to helping veterans. And the man certainly did all of his life. From the time when he returned home after the war, and he became eventually the town's veterans agent, and he became so adept at it and so well known. There were people that needed services or needed help or whatever from all over the country that would write to him and call him, and he was very well respected. And if Charles Grout said something was going to get done, it got done. And I'm certain that you're of exactly the same mind. Can you tell me what your experience has been with the military? What branch you were in? Tell us about your branch you're in and when you served, and why you're in.
I was not in the military. I tried enlisting in all the branches. I was denied on a medical. I did not serve. I don't have a discharge paper.
Right.
But yeah. So as far as your buddy you knew there from Winchendon, in Massachusetts, this is where Massachusetts is really ahead of the curve on veteran services than any other state in the country. We have a law called Mass General Law, Chapter 115. It's quite literally Chapter 115 of the Mass Laws. It dictates that every city and town is required to have a veterans agent. Now, there are some cities and towns, especially in the western part of the state, that they can't support, the population can't support a full-time veterans agent for every city and town. So they'll create districts, whether it be anywhere from 2 to 6 or 7 towns will have one veterans agent. But throughout the state, there is a veterans agent you can get a hold of. By and large, most of them are full-time, again, because of the population of some of the towns. Some of them might be part-time. But there are well over 200 of us in Massachusetts. As far as I understand it, there are only 12 in New Hampshire.
12
veterans agents.
Okay.
I could actually look that up. Well, from where I am, the Lakes region, the closest veterans agent would be either Littleton or Concord. Concord would probably be the closest.
Okay.
Which is slightly obscene when you think of, some of these veterans and some of the infirmities, whether it be their age, their infirmities, whether they even have transportation. I spoke to one particular veteran here where I'm in, here in the town I'm in, and he doesn't have a vehicle, Vietnam veteran. Him being boots on the ground in Vietnam, he was exposed to Agent Orange. He does have presumptive conditions for Agent Orange exposure. He was also shot and bayoneted. He was a tunnel rat. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, a tunnel rat was generally the soldiers of shorter stature, smaller guys, who could fit into those little spider hole tunnels and chase the NVA and the Viet Cong into those little tunnels and try to get them. The survival rate for a tunnel rat was very slim because of the booby traps and the other hidden tunnels and such that the Vietnamese would pop out and would kill them. So obviously there's an element of PTSD there. He receives nothing. He does not have a VA disability rating whatsoever. And this is a very, very common theme I'm finding up in New Hampshire. I've only been here for a couple of years, and this is a very common theme up here.
I'm sorry. I just want to let you know I received a message from the engineer. He says, "Want to let you know that we have a Massachusetts VFW on board tonight." So I'm not exactly sure, Mr. Blazeman. You want to fill us in on that information if you got the.
It's we're connected to a VFW post 486, Private Joseph Francis in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. And to those
I
viewers,
just
please
wanted
welcome.
to, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to give you to give Ken a heads up so that way he knows that he could be speaking to actual veterans out there as well. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. And I'm so glad this is exactly what my intention was, is that tonight it's about the veterans because they've given so much.
Yep.
It's time that, we dedicate something strictly to them. We've got a phone number 508-974-4231. If you want to call in and talk with this fellow or to give us a little heads up, a story about whatever your tales of woe might be with the VA or your veteran services, or your lack of service thereof, give us a call, 508-974-4231. The phones are going to be open. We'll be more than happy to take them in our discussions. I'm going to ask you, Ken, in your capacity, now you not only deal with things that people are looking for maybe some hospitalization or medical things or so forth. What are the other services that a veterans agent will provide for the veterans?
Well, so Massachusetts, again, is unique under Mass General Law, Chapter 115. There is a financial benefit for low-income veterans and widows and couples. Again, we're the only state in the country that does this. New Hampshire does not have this. So, I mean, more pertaining to New Hampshire, access to the VSOs or to a veterans agent or somebody who is accredited as a with the VA to submit claims on the veteran's behalf. Again, where I live here, both the Legion Post nor the VFW have somebody who's accredited by the VA. They had at one point, but they no longer do. So, for having the VFW in Fall River, having somebody accredited with the VA, again, it's one of those things where the more people that would have the knowledge and the availability and the know-how to guide the veterans and assist the veterans and the widows, that's a very underserved population, in filing their claims, whatever that claim might be, whether it be disability or dependency and indemnity compensation. That would be more for widows. But the more people that we could find, there has to be a better roster. Again, when you look on the NewHampshire.gov website, it only lists just the 12 that are hired by the state, and they're very, very spread out. I mean, I wish there was a more comprehensive list of the VFWs and the American Legions who have VA accredited people that could assist the veterans and the widows in their claims. But I mean, there's a slew of benefits, and one thing that really needs to be known is that a lot of the old guys, and I say old guys, I'm 42, but some of these old guys, their thinking, their mindset. My grandfather was the same way. He was Korean War combat wounded. Absolutely had a claim, never filed one. Not for a lack of access, but because their mentality was save it for the guys who need it. That's actually counterintuitive to the way the VA works. If these guys don't file their claims, the VA kind of says to themselves, well, these guys aren't filing their claims, we can scale back the funding. If these guys are filing their claims, they kind of think, we kind of need to forward fund this a little bit. And especially with the Vietnam guys,
right?
Guys who were not just the guys who were boots on the ground. And this is another, I would say kind of known, but not well known sort of thing. The Navy guys, the brown water guys, which is the riverways and the blue water.
Yeah.
So the ships were off the coast. There are still Vietnam veterans who are in the Navy who still don't realize that blue water Navy was exposed. And there is a list of ships you can look up. You just look up Agent Orange Blue Water Navy, and you can find the entire list of ships. If your ship is on there, then you're already presumed to have been exposed. And if you can prove service of that ship.
I had an uncle, and he's gone now, unfortunately, but loved the man dearly. Spent 22 years in the Navy. He actually saw action in Vietnam, even though he was on sub duty for 22 years. And they actually he actually did have action in Vietnam. And I don't know if he received any benefits for anything and all like that, or whatever. But he was quite an amazing fellow. I did hear a story. I was talking about the fellow who works at our town transfer station, who has a very close friend, or had a very close friend, I should say, who was in Vietnam with him, and I guess he was in one of the planes that was spraying the Agent Orange stuff, and I guess the VA for the longest time was telling him, oh well, the type of cancer you have has nothing to do with Agent Orange. We're not, it has nothing to do with this. And I've heard so many stories about things that make your toenails curl about benefits being denied and so forth. Please, what can you give us some examples of what you deal with?
Well, yeah, benefits do often get denied, and not completely denied. I mean, depends on what you're claiming. I mean, if you're claiming hearing loss, but you worked at a computer, well, probably tinnitus and hearing loss, you're probably not going to receive a favorable decision on that claim because you worked at a computer. You weren't infantry. You weren't a mechanic. You weren't on the flight line. You weren't around loud noises all the time. You didn't have the exposure, at least on paper. We had one guy who's a World War II veteran still alive. He's 100 now. He was on paper, on his discharge paper, he was a clerk typist, but he was in the Philippine Liberation on board an M4 Priest armored artillery vehicle.
Wow.
When he wasn't in the hospital being a clerk typist, they stuck him on an armored artillery. He just got his hearing loss claim done. He never filed for it. Again, it was things where save it for the guys who need it. There's the primary conditions is where people focus, and it's the secondary conditions that people also need to look at. Like with Agent Orange, hypertension is now on the presumptive list. So if you have high blood pressure and you can prove exposure, now if you have hypertension, you file for the disability. You just have a letter from your doctor that says, yes, you have hypertension, or some sort of medical report that shows you have hypertension. Then that's an automatic presumptive. You will be granted a hypertension percentage. Generally, that percentage is 0. That is not a compensatable disability unless your systolic pressure stays consistently above 100. But that's even with medication. So if with medication, if your systolic goes above 100 and it's consistently measured above that, then they'll compensate you for it. But with hypertension, it's the secondary conditions that you need to look at: heart attack, stroke, even if that causes your death, which by and large that is usually the case. If you have hypertension and you have a heart attack and you die from that heart attack, if you already have hypertension on your VA disability, even at a 0%, and your cause of death is heart attack due to hypertension, your widow will receive DIC, which is dependency and indemnity compensation. Right now, it's around $1,600 a month tax-free for the rest of her life, and that goes up with the cost of living. In Massachusetts, if a widow is receiving DIC, they receive a full exemption from their property taxes. There are some cities and towns in New Hampshire that do that, but it's not a statewide thing. It's a city and town. It's per city and per town. They have their own ruls.
What about other states besides Mass and New Hampshire? Because we are transmitting over 13 different platforms. We are literally seen around the world right now. But here in the rest of the other 49 states, so to speak, are they having these same issues as well?
Well, so I mean, as far as the VA claims version, so the VA is 2 separate divisions. You have VA medical, you have VA VA disability, and the way I explain it to the veterans is one's the officer side of the house, one's the enlisted side of the house. They don't talk to one another. So if you go to the VA for medical, they're not automatic. If you have a hearing loss and they know it was because you were infantry, boots on the ground, or artillery, or what have you, mortarman, they're not putting you in for a VA disability claim. They're treating the hearing. If you have, some back issue, knee issue, they're treating the medical side of things. They're not handling the disability side of things. So, I mean, if you have some sort of injury or illness because of your service, call your local veterans agent or American Legion or VFW Post. Hopefully they have, somebody, close by who can either guide you through the claim process or assist you in the claim process, or even submit the claim for you on your behalf.
Wow. That's fantastic. It would be nice to have all of these services. There are, as you said, there are people who say, well, I'll leave it for the guys who need it or whatever else.
Yeah.
Let's tickle the dragon's tail here a little bit. Talk with me about the grand scheme of post-traumatic stress disorders.
So PTSD, and some people want to deal with, some people can deal with it, some people don't want to deal with it. I've done claims for veterans who they recognize what PTSD is. They know they have it. Whether they've sought treatment or not is a different story. But they do recognize it, and they know what it is, and they know how it affects them. There are other veterans who don't even want to acknowledge. They don't want to remember. They don't want to rehash what they saw, what they went through. And you can't force them. That's something they have to come to terms with on their own. And hopefully they get help. Hopefully they seek the help that will really be a huge benefit to them, because I recently had a friend of mine, a combat veteran, started enlisted, went to the officer side, and ultimately he lost his battle with PTSD and he committed suicide. And unfortunately, we've lost more OIF, OEF guys from PTSD suicide than we did in the actual 20 years we were in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Good God.
Yeah.
Good.
So it's one of those things where, do I push people? No. Do I kind of try to nudge them towards talking to somebody, getting the help they need? I mean, never mind the compensatable aspect of it, but I would rather have a veteran not file their claim, but getting the help they need so they're still here. And maybe eventually they'll come to terms with it and file their claim.
Our own engineer, Mr. Blazeman, has a question for you. Blazeman, go right ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. B. I was very excited when I found out that we were going to have a VA agent on the show. So, I volunteered like 7 years of my time to the local VFW here, VFW Post Private Francis, Joseph Private Francis. The question that I have is that, why do veterans in Massachusetts have to go to the Rhode Island VA for their
They don't.
services?
They don't. They don't
Everyone
have.
that I had talked to said they go there. Do they go there for convenience? Maybe.
Yeah. Are you talking Fall River?
Yeah.
Yeah. Rhode Island's going to be the closest VA hospital.
Right. So that's why that they
Yeah.
choose to go to Rhode Island. This is a question for me. It's not that somebody had brought it forth to me.
Yeah. So I mean, aside from Bedford, which is an absolute nightmare to get to, especially from the North Shore. I mean, you have a Lynn Clinic, a Gloucester Clinic. There are different VA clinics around, but by and large, the South Shore, a little more sparsely populated than the North Shore and Boston Metro. So yeah, I mean, it's just probably the closest VA hospital to them.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that, because I could never understand why they were going to Rhode Island when they were mass veterans. That's why.
Yeah. And again, the VAs are federal. I mean, if they really want
Right.
just to New Hampshire, if they really wanted to drive a couple hours, they could.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. And don't forget that we got the VFW page on there. So if there's any information that you could give out to people, and maybe I could put it up on the VFW Facebook page, that'd be great. Thanks again, Ken.
What I would absolutely put out there would be the current Agent Orange presumptive list, also the PACT Act, PACT, that was passed, that added the more conditions, that added more locations, like Korea post the Korean War. I forget what years it was, but they did add a time period in Korea that was exposed to Agent Orange. They added some of the atolls. They added some of the radiation exposures from the nuclear testing. Again, these are probably some of these guys had filed these claims before, but never were denied because they said, at the time, the VA said, nope, nothing to see here. Now they've acknowledged it.
Right. Okay. We are coming up on the time. We're going to have to take a break and pay some bills. We're talking with Mr. Ken Mckay, a veterans agent who works in Massachusetts but lives in New Hampshire, has a hell of a commute. When we come back, I want to really start delving into some of the horror stories about what happens to they who are left behind. If you want to think about some of that. I'm Mr. B. Politics with Mr. B. We'll be back in probably about 3.5 to 4 minutes. Don't go away.
I've got spare parts from my last broken heart. Somehow more than what I had to start. Yeah, I've got spare parts. I tried to fix it best I remembered it. I hope it runs when I fire it up, 'cause I got spare parts. So if you see something that you might need, anything you can use, what's left of it might be the perfect fit, 'cause I got spare parts. Took a piece of you, like lovers often do. I'll try to make it good as new, 'cause I got spare parts. So if you see something that you might need, anything you can use, what's left of it might be the perfect fit, 'cause I've got spare parts. What's left of it might be the perfect fit, 'cause I've got spare parts.
My name is Steven, your Public Relations Officer at FFN Media Network. We believe that every story deserves to be heard. Every voice deserves to be amplified, and every idea deserves to shine. As a small media company, we are committed to creating a platform where content creators, visionaries, and changemakers like you can thrive. You might say to yourself, why do we need FFN Network? Well, let me tell you what we can do for you. 1. Our mission is simple: empower, elevate, and engage. We are not just another media outlet. 2. Our producers will help you build your show, add content, and put you on 15 different platforms. 3. We help you promote your show. Whether it is through captivating articles, thought-provoking videos, or inspiring podcasts, we are here to help you make a difference. What sets us apart? At FFN Media Network, we embrace hard work. Our team of talented producers and creators come from all social classes, ensuring that our content reflects a rich tapestry of experiences, cultures, and viewpoints. Join the FFN team. Join FFN Media Network and be part of a community that celebrates creativity, authenticity, and positive impact. Let us amplify your voice and share your story on FFN Network and with the world. Get to know our founder, Blaise St. Pierre, the new guy in the media industry. So if you have a great idea for a show or a business and want to place an ad on FFN Network, give us a call at 774-704-5145 or email us at ffnnetwork9@gmail.com. And join the FFN Network family. Thank you. FFN Network.
And we are back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. Politicking with Mr. B. We're talking with this dynamic individual here, Mr. Ken Mckay, a veterans agent, helps people out if they had some service or need of services. And but before we get into the subject matter that I had first espoused, perhaps you'd like to tell us how veterans themselves can take and file their claims.
Right. So, I mean, if you have any sort of computer savvy, if you want to do the claim on your own, you can. Never mind these lawyers. Some of these organizations, I'm not talking about the VFW or the American Legion. There's other organizations who just botch claims. Don't tell the whole story. Don't tell a completely incorrect story. I've run into that. Where the agency was claiming the person was in Vietnam, but they were born in 1968. So it was a completely botched claim. It was bad. But if you have any computer savvy, if you even just have a computer, ebenefits.va.gov is the website. You sign up for an eBenefits account. That's for veterans. I would recommend that you go to the vetrex.archives.gov or just archives.gov and request your records. Request your entire OMPF, the official military personnel file, and try to get your records in their entirety: medical records, duty records, everything. And on the eVetRex, sign up for an account and file what's called an intent to file. That starts the clock. You have a year. Once you start that clock, you have a year to submit that claim. But that starts the clock. The first form you're going to fill out is what's called a 21-526EZ. That is your disability claim form. That's the form where you're going to list all of the disabilities that you're claiming. Now, again, when I talk about secondary conditions, if you rolled your ankle when you were in the service on Uncle Sam's dime on Uncle Sam's time, it doesn't have to be in active combat. Let's say you rolled your ankle and it required to have surgery, and it affects you today. You rolled your ankle. There's the injury. The secondary condition is you had the surgery, and now you have some sort of infirmity with your ankle. Again, with the hypertension, you have heart attacks, strokes, anything that is disabling in some way. Hearing loss, tinnitus, depending on your MOS. If you're married, there is a form also there. Actually, there's a way right on the e-benefits just to add dependents. So if you're married, if you have minor children, you'll receive a benefit for them. But then also, again, like the Vietnam guys, if you have your widow or your wife listed, and then you pass, she's automatically already in the system as a dependent. The one thing I come across a lot is there's no record. There's no record of an incident happening or an injury or something. Witness statements, buddy statements. That is a 21-10210. That's a witness statement that if you are still in contact with any of your buddies who you served with, they can either just type out a letter, sign a letter, or they can fill out one of these forms as a witness statement. That serves as evidence. A lot of people don't realize that. There's so many forms. If I showed you how many forms are available, hold on. Let me go to the top of the page. So it's slightly psychotic about how many forms.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Wow.
It does seem very very daunting, but that's why people like me exist. Is my job is to assist the veteran or the widow in obtaining those benefits. Now, and another, like I said, the widows are very underserved. They believe that a lot of them are told that the benefits die when the veteran dies, which is incorrect. Depending upon how the veteran died, the benefits may still be available. Also, dependent children who have a disability prior to 18. So if they have, say, autism or Down syndrome, they can't take care of themselves. They're still dependent children of that veteran, even if they're over 18 years old. They would still qualify for, say, DIC benefits. If they were in fact even as an adult dependent upon the veteran. But burial benefits, if it's a non-service connected burial, the VA they'll only reimburse for the travel from the funeral home to the cemetery. But for a service connected death, the reimbursement amount is $2,000. And again, those numbers may change, whether it be through legislation or through just an increase because of the cost of living and the cost of funerals. But if you have a computer, get on eBenefits, sign up for an account, put in all your information, add your dependents, put in your intent to file your claims. Talk with your doctors. If you have some sort of injury or illness that affects you today, if your doctor believes that injury happened because of your service, or it is more than likely the injury or illness is because of your service, if they give a letter of medical opinion that it's more than likely that the injury or illness is because of your service and what you did or what happened, then that counts as evidence. It could be a doctor, could be a nurse practitioner, but somebody that tracks you medically. So there's, if you have any medical documentation that would show any of the injuries or any of the illnesses, gather that all up. This is the whole point of doing the intent to file first. Put in the intent to file, that starts the clock. Gather your evidence, talk to your buddies, get the witness statements, submit to the National Archives for your OMPF. Talk to your regular doctors, get letters of medical opinion. Once you have all that, do a 21526 EZ, upload all the documents, all your medical reports, any witness statements, anything like that, and submit your claim. The claim form is at the, I'm on a phone. Oh yeah. Is that the 526? I think that's the 526 EZ. Okay, no, so that wasn't. That was applying for health benefits. So another benefit is aid and attendance. Aid and attendance is not when the veterans or the widows get older, nursing homes, things like that. It's not, the VA doesn't cover it 100%. They will assist if aid and attendance is granted. I would suggest that any of the children or family members of the veterans and widows of the advanced age seek out a veterans agent to help with aid and attendance. That is a very daunting task. It is a very long process. Be prepared. These things do not happen quickly. Even with regular disability claims, the claims don't move very quickly. It could take months, if not a year or better, depending upon the conditions that are claimed, or if there's a backlog. Right now, there's a huge backlog, even for DIC claims. I mean, if you have a veteran who died of a heart attack because of hypertension, and it says it right there in the death certificate, it could still take 6 to 8 months for the VA to be like, yep. They look at the death certificate, they look at the service in Vietnam, and they're like, yep, okay. And they grant the DIC. Yeah, you get a retro check, but all that time you're just waiting. You're just playing the waiting game.
Right.
It's just a huge backlog.
Right. So let's say which I am not, but let's say for the example, I'm a veteran and I start go out and I go online and I file this form and so forth, and now I kind of get stuck, and I filed form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I file form 69697. And if I'm having some sort of problem, I go to you and you say, wait a minute, you don't need the 69697, you need the 114AF or whatever else instead of that. How often do you find that people wind up in a repetitive loop because they're filing the wrong darn forms, or someone's saying, "Oh no, you don't need this, you need that," or whatever else? Is this a really big problem?
I wouldn't say it's a problem. It does happen. The VA is usually pretty good about when they'll usually send it snail mail, telling you, okay, well, for PTSD, if you're claiming PTSD, hold on, I can't always remember the form numbers off the top of my head. So if you're filing for PTSD, and you just put it on the 526EZ, you also need to file a 21-0781. That's the statement in support of claims for PTSD, where it's kind of where you put a narrative of what happened and how it affects you. But if you don't have the 0781, they're not really going to look at the PTSD portion of your claim. Or they're going to send you a letter saying, hey, we need you to fill out an 0781. So pay attention to the mail. If the VA asks for a form, take care of that form, just fill it out. If you get stuck, find a veterans agent, ask them the questions. Now, if somebody comes to me, if let's say they filed their own claim, I can't just log in and see their claim. If they wanted me to, say, take over their claim, they could fill out a 2122 and appoint me to represent them to handle their claim. And then I would be able to see everything. I would be able to see all the forms, all the communications from the VA. I'd be able to see everything. And, having that ability, yeah, I would have a much better understanding about what they need, where to go, what to do. But by and large, I mean, it's just, it can be very simple. Like I said, the 526EZ, 0781 for PTSD. I think it's a 686C for dependents. The DIC is 21P-534. But it's more user friendly on the e-benefits site. When you're filing your own, you don't have to remember all these form numbers. It kind of is like a questionnaire. What do you need to file? What do you need to do? And like I said, if you forget something, the VA is going to send you some mail, and they're going to say, "Hey, we
Talk to
need
me about being independent. Let's say I'm a dependent. My mother was in the military in some form, and she was over in a combat area over in Iraq or something of that nature. I'm a dependent. I'm a 13-year-old child, and I need some form of services. How far does the VA delve into that?
So for dependent children, let's say the parent dies from some service connected injury or illness. The child would be eligible for DIC, as would be the widow or widower.
Okay, what is DIC?
DIC is what's considered dependent, in dependency and indemnity compensation.
Okay.
That's where a veteran passes of a service-connected injury or illness, and the spouse and or children up until a certain age receive that benefit. Now, one question I've received more than a couple times, I wouldn't say a lot, but more than a couple times, was, does suicide count? In some cases, yes. If the veteran was married, and they had PTSD, say it was diagnosed, let's say they already had it in there as a VA disability, let's say they had a percentage for it. It is possible for a suicide to be a service-connected death. Even though it wasn't in combat, it wasn't from a direct injury or illness. That's the injury you can't see. But yes, the suicide is definitely one of those ones that is eligible under under the right circumstances. If it was absolutely depression due to the PTSD, then it's more of a letter of medical opinion. If there's a psychiatrist or a primary care doctor that could say, yeah, it's more than likely that they took their own life because of their PTSD, then that could serve as medical evidence and assist in the claim.
Okay. Talk with me about, if you can, what about drug addictions? It's a very, very big thing going on now.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where I mean, if let's say, for most of the guys I've talked to, they get when they're in the military, they get ibuprofen. They don't really get much of anything else. I mean, if the VA perhaps over prescribed opiates and some, that's kind of a fine line. That's really skirting a fine line. Is it possible? Sure, I'm sure it's possible. Is it common? No. Believe it or not, it's I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had a claim for a veteran who, say, overdosed.
Okay.
I can't think of a claim I've ever worked on that had that.
I've just got the wheels buzzing in the back of my head here. We're talking about PTSD, and you've got someone who's a victim of PTSD, which is a debilitating thing, and they wind up turning to alcohol. And next thing you know, they pick up some form of pills that someone kind of shoved in their direction, and now they're addicted, and it's at the root of trying to stop all of the madness and whatever else. I didn't know if the VA handled that, or if this was something that you were seeing.
It is entirely possible, and and some of that might be dependent upon if the veteran had the diagnosis. Again, that's their big thing, is just having the diagnosis, having a doctor that tracks you, that can diagnose you with PTSD. And again, PTSD affects people very differently. Some people think, well, unless I'm like balled up in a corner crying and uncontrollably, and I can't, do certain things, then I don't have PTSD. That's not true. It affects everybody differently. It's about how it affects you. I know people who, when they're in heavy traffic, they start white knuckling that steering wheel because, it just brings them right back to Afghanistan and being closed in. And, again, I wasn't in combat, but I have PTSD from something very, very different. And the way it affects me is, affects people. It affects, I'll just tell you, my son died 21 years ago. Oh. And, again, that sort of incident, it comes and goes. I think about it all the time, but it comes in and then it's gone. But it's there. It's there all the time. About the time of when he died, every year, it comes back. Like that whole week, I'm a mess.
I'm so sorry.
That's how it affects me. Some people, some of the things they saw, some of the things they did, whether it be combat related, even non-combat related. I've had veterans with PTSD who saw a buddy maimed or injured in some way in a training accident or something outside of combat, just a working accident where they were maimed or killed. That's absolutely something that will affect you. My grandfather, like I said, he was combat wounded in Korea. I remember being upstairs and I'd hear a loud thump, and it was my grandfather waking up in a cold sweat, jumping out of bed, jumping into a foxhole. That's what he thought he was doing. He went right back to Korea.
Completely understand that.
Not everybody does that.
No,
not everybody considers suicide on a daily basis. Not everybody, regresses and becomes an introvert. And that's the thing is, the VA really doesn't care about your story. They've heard it 1,000 times in 100 different ways. They want to know how the incident that affects you, how it affects you. And that's really where, when you come to having your appointment, when you file for PTSD, any disability you file for, any claim you file for, you're going to have a different appointment for each disability. And when it comes to PTSD, again, they don't care about your story. They've heard it 1,000 times. Oh, I was shot at. My friend was shot at. I watched my friend die, or, I ended up shooting a kid because he had a bomb vest strapped to him. I didn't want to shoot a kid, but I did. And again, I've heard it all. And the VA's heard it 1,000 times over and over again. And how does it affect you? That's what you really need to get across to the person you talk to when you file your claim.
I'm going to hold on for a second. Mr. Blazeman, we're coming up on the 1 hour mark. Would in the interest of serving the veterans, would the FFN network allow us an additional half hour?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to pay some more bills. We're going to come back, and then we'll continue on with Mr. Ken Mckay. I'm Mr. B, politicking with Mr. B. We certainly want to help out these people that are out there. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
My name is Steven, your public relations officer at FFN Media Network. We believe that every story deserves to be heard. Every voice deserves to be amplified, and every idea deserves to shine. As a small media company, we are committed to creating a platform where content creators, visionaries, and changemakers like you can thrive. You might say to yourself, why do we need FFN Network? Well, let me tell you what we can do for you. 1. Our mission is simple: empower, elevate, and engage. We are not just another media outlet. 2. Our producers will help you build your show, add content, and put you on 15 different platforms. 3. We help you promote your show. Whether it is through captivating articles, thought-provoking videos, or inspiring podcasts, we are here to help you make a difference. What sets us apart? At FFN Media Network, we embrace hard work. Our team of talented producers and creators come from all social classes, ensuring that our content reflects a rich tapestry of experiences, cultures, and viewpoints. Join the FFN team. Join FFN Media Network and be part of a community that celebrates creativity, authenticity, and positive impact. Let us amplify your voice and share your story on FFN Network and with the world. Get to know our founder, Blaise St. Pierre, the new guy in the media industry. So if you have a great idea for a show or a business and want to place an ad on FFN Network, give us a call at 774-704-5145 or email us at ffnnetwork9@gmail.com and join the FFN Network family. Thank you. FFN Network.
And we are back with Mr. Ken Mckay, politicking with Mr. B, talking about veteran services. The gentleman is a VA veterans agent. He's
Technically,
helped out people. Pardon me?
I don't work for the VA. I work for a municipality.
That's correct. Thank you very much.
I don't work for the federal.
Thank you very much. He does not work for the federal government, does not work for the VA. However, he can assist people who are seeking services from the VA. Now,
yes.
Aside from medical services and so forth, are there any other services that your office provides? I mean, things with helping people with job placement or anything? Is any of that encompassed in the work that you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, at least in the community that I work in, if we have a veteran who's in the construction trade, we might know, 10, 12 different contractors. We'll call around, see if, we can find a slot for him somewhere doing something. We have the career centers in Massachusetts. Again, I'm talking about Massachusetts. We have the career centers where generally they have veteran representatives who are veterans themselves, and their job is to assist veterans in finding employment. I mean, more specifically to the Massachusetts veterans and widows, the Chapter 115 benefit. If it's an individual person, then it's the income limit is like $2,500 a month, and I think for a couple is like $3,300 off the top of my head. It's around $3,300 a month. If they're below that cap, they qualify for a Chapter 115, which is a financial safety net benefit program. It's the only state in the country that has this. Unfortunately, it's the only state. And Chapter 115 has been a law in Massachusetts since 1861. The individual cities and towns have been providing support to infirmed veterans, disabled veterans, widows, and dependents of veterans since the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
I've actually held documents from the vault downstairs in City Hall pertaining to the assistance of widows and infirmed veterans because of their service. But again, in Massachusetts, it's very unique. And I know you're transmitting across 13 different platforms. So maybe we'll get some people in Massachusetts. If your income falls within those guidelines, go to your local veterans agent. Bring your financials, bring your bank statements, bring a rent or mortgage, or your taxes, your water, your sewer, if that applies to you. 3 months of bank statements, all the income you have. If you have less than, like, I think it's like $8,400 or $8,500 in the bank, individual at $2,500 a month, and it's like 16,500 or 16,000 for a couple, and less than like 3,300 a month income, then you qualify for Chapter 115. You might get a financial check every month from the city or town. You might get fuel assistance from the out of the Chapter 115 if you pay for heat. If you qualify at all, you will get medical reimbursement, which the city or town will reimburse your Medicare, any private health insurance, co-pays, prescriptions, doctor's office visits, all of it gets reimbursed 100%.
Let me ask, where does this get funded from? Because if this is only in Massachusetts, it sounds like it's something that's funded by the state, not by the federal government.
Correct. It is funded by the state. The cities and towns pay the benefit, and the state reimburses the city or town 75%. So the town does take a 25% hit. But we're propping up the veterans and the widows so that they can survive, they can sustain. And in a lot of cases where we have, some younger veterans who've just fallen on hard times, no work, they don't have work, they don't have unemployment, they don't have any income, or they have very little income, then we're kind of like that safety gap, where when we can get them on Chapter 115, we can help them with the slew of other, even federally funded sources that could help them, whether it be one of the CAP programs, one of the fuel assistance programs if they pay for heat. I was actually able to get a brand new furnace for a veteran. His furnace was gone. It was toast.
Wow.
And he was walking around with, he's a little old guy, Vietnam guy, walking around with a heater attached to an extension cord. But, we got him on the state benefit. We got him on the CAP program, and we were able to get another agency. When you're approved for the CAP program, we got another agency to pay for and install a brand new furnace for him. So now he had heat all winter. He was good. And because he's on the benefit, he does get the fuel benefit. We help him with his heat, so he really doesn't have to worry about that bill.
Somewhere out there watching, viewing this, you could be in Hawaii, you could be in Montana. I don't know. If you are a veteran and you have a question, 508-974-4231. Now is the time to call. It's live. You can speak with this fella, ask a question, and I'm sure, I know he's not a BSer. If he doesn't know, he will find out the answer for you. 508-974-4231. Now, Kent, we had spoken before about apparently there have been some horror stories that go on with people who need services, but for whatever reason find themselves either in a repetitive loop or just find themselves on the outside looking in. Can you enlighten us about some of these situations and tell us how you work to bring people out of it?
Well, I mean, it's very situation dependent. I mean, you have the people that can use the help but don't want it. Again, I can try to advocate as best I can and try to do everything I can for them. You have people who have just fallen on hard times who just need a hand temporarily, and I can be that stopgap for some of them. Um, there are some horror stories. Trying to kind of blanking off the top of my head. Um, I don't know. I don't remember quite one of the ones I told you.
Well, I believe you said something that there was a widow who was trying to get some sort of services, and I believe the VA just was not being very forthcoming at all.
Well, yeah. So I mean, there's sometimes what ends up happening is this does happen, and it's unfortunate that it does happen. Um, that there could be a very, very clear claim, say for a widow, DIC. Um, and for some reason, whether it be the person didn't look at the claim correctly, didn't read it correctly, it has happened where they mix up claims, they mix up the veteran. So if we're claiming DIC, but they pull up a claim for hypertension, they're like, well, we're not granting DIC because this isn't a DIC claim form. They deny the claim. Again, it's not something that's not undoable. That's where you just hold on, let me find the form. Help if I could spell. There's a form you can file where 21-4138, where it was a clear error, a clear and unmistakable error at the hands of the rater, whoever went through the file, and that brings it to another level of review where they go through it with a fine-tooth comb and they really look at it a lot more carefully. And by and large, I don't think I've ever had, if there was a clear and unmistakable error, I don't think I've ever had a claim denied the second time.
Wow, wow.
But,
Which
but
is
again, at the same time, there are people who are denied benefits who just give up. Now, some of these doctors they go see, they're not VA doctors. They're third party contractors. They do not work for the VA. They basically evaluate you, send in a report, collect a check. I will say that some people are better than others. Some people actually sit there and listen. Some people actually read the reports. They actually have an informed opinion. Some of them are just butcher shop style, where you know I had one where it was a claim for sleep apnea due to burn pits, because of the asthma. The asthma caused sleep apnea, and the first exam was reported to me by the veteran was about 15 seconds. The guy came
wow,
on through Zoom, um, asked 3 questions, said, "Oh, I have everything I need here. Bye," and hung up, and was denied because the guy didn't actually do his job. That happens. If you get a bad exam, if you have somebody who wasn't listening, wasn't paying attention, you can file a 21-4138 and request a new exam and explain what happened.
wow, wow.
These things do happen, and it's not.
Yeah,
I wish the system was flawless. I wish that
yeah.
every report and every form was thoroughly searched through and understood before somebody made a decision. That's not the way it always works.
And people expect because it's the government, it's supposed to be infallible, and they are not. These are human beings, and they're not machines. They're not computers, and human beings do make mistakes. Also,
Well,
human beings can be have that cockle of the heartwarming era of wit and sarcasm when they become arrogant about certain things and decide that, well, no, I know more than somebody else, and that could be very off-putting too. Do you find the people when you're trying to get services straightened out for someone, do you find at times that there are some people who are just too damn pig-headed to listen?
Well, I wouldn't say on the Raider side. We don't really know the Raiders. I mean, it goes to a central database, and they just kind of, different locations around the country just pick the files at random. So we don't know the Raiders. I will say that there are veterans who file frivolous claims. Now, by law, I have to file the claim by law. They could claim that, anything they want. I have to file that claim, whether they have evidence to support it or not. If I believe it's frivolous, doesn't matter. I still have to file that claim. Will it get denied?
Okay.
More than 99.9% of the time, it gets denied.
Right.
And they can file a 4138, and they can request a higher level review. Again, if it's frivolous, it's going to get denied. But I still have to file it.
What about the other side of the coin? When you have, and you have, it's a slam dunk legitimate claim, and the VA turns around somewhat for whatever reason says this is a frivolous claim and we're not dealing with this and denies it.
Well, usually, I mean, if it's a very legit claim, generally it's not kind of passed off as frivolous. But have I had very clear claims denied? Yes. Yes, I have. But again, that's when we just go into the higher level review.
Right. Now, was that for a matter of a paperwork issue that they were denied it, or was it something else, some other technicality or something?
So sometimes it's a matter of documentation or evidence. Sometimes it's a matter of connecting the dots. Again, with like a service-connected death. Let's say you have a veteran who had a hip injury in service, and now that they're older and they've had this hip injury, they have a service connection for it. Let's say they end up falling and breaking their hip, and that causes them to decline and ultimately pass. Could that be service connected? Yes, it could, because the fall was a result of their service connected injury, which caused their decline. Whereas if they hadn't fallen, they wouldn't have they more than likely would not have died. Those kind of claims are, I wouldn't say denied outright. Are some claims like that denied the first time? Yes. That's when you have to get into a 4138, punch out an explanation, and request a higher level review. And that's generally the second time around. If it's a situation like that, generally the second time around that will get granted.
Okay, I've got a question. I'm sure you're not expecting to hear, but I believe at this point it needs to be asked. You and I both know that there are some very tenuous things going on over here in the world, and when things start heating up, when our military starts getting sent around all hockety pockety, like we're seeing now with new and additional carrier groups and boats and whatever else getting sent off to the Middle East and whatnot, it's only a matter of time. It's a foregone conclusion that something's going to happen. Do they, or does the government reach out to you and say, you know what, we've got some things that are heating up. You might want to consider that there's going to be an uptick in your head count when you have people seeking services in a certain period of time? Do they give you some sort of warning that something might be coming that you would have to be dealing with?
No. So right now, we have a lot of, especially with the Agent Orange and also with the Camp Lejeune contaminated water, where you see it on TV. You're seeing contaminated water. Now, do not call one of those numbers. Those people are not lawyers. They're collecting your information and they're selling that information to the lawyers. And the lawyers are taking 40% of your retro check. You come to see someone like me, You go to a VA veterans agent, you go to one of the Legion posts or one of the VFWs, you go to a veterans agent, they're not getting paid. They're getting paid for that by the city or town they work for or the state that they work for. They're getting paid by tax dollars, which are appropriated just for providing these benefits. The scumbag lawyers, and again, I am not a fan of lawyers. If you're a lawyer, I don't like you. I had enough bad experiences with them, not on the criminal side of things, but just enough experience with them where I don't trust them. But they're taking 40% on those claims, and that's obscene. Whereas that's I don't even really like to call it a benefit. It's compensation. That's compensation for the government breaking you or poisoning you. That's your money. And to see 40% of your, and granted, it's just your retro check, but let's say your claim goes on for 2 years. That's 2 years of retro payments minus 40% you're giving to the lawyer. That's your compensation.
For those who don't know, or I understand and I know what a retro check is, but for those who don't understand, would you explain to them what you mean by a retro check?
Yeah, so from the date you file your claim up until the date they basically send you payment, all of those months add up. So let's say let's say you file all these claims and you're at 100% service connected disability. That's like $3,700 a month. So let's say your claim goes on for a year. So you're at say like $43,000 roughly. If you go through a lawyer and you sign a contingency document, you're handing over whatever that percentage that you've agreed to. You're handing that money to the lawyer. So if let's say your claim was, went on for a year and you were granted 100% VA disability, you're handing about a little under $20,000 over to the lawyer.
For them to sit around and check a box and sign a paper and put a stamp on it and send it in the mail.
To do the hours worth of work that I do. Generally the claims that I file take about an hour.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, there's some follow up. If there's if I explain that, hey, go talk to your doctor, go get their opinion, go get a letter of medical opinion from your doctor, gather these medical records. Yeah, there might be some follow up. That's usually 5 or 10 minutes. But
and
generally,
you do this in Massachusetts. There are people who do it in every single state, but it all depends on how many people there are in these states. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, you have some states that are much lesser population. And New Hampshire is 1.3 million people. Nothing to sneeze at. But you still have a lot of veterans who just don't have the access to a veterans agent because they're just so spread out and there's so few of them. Vermont, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, they're spread out up there. I should say over there. I used to live down south. I'm up north now. So over there, I don't know how many veterans agents they have. I don't know per capita how many veterans there are, but I'm probably sure, just like New Hampshire, the veteran population is severely served, and the families.
Let me ask a very easy question. How do we get the word out so that more people will actually utilize veterans agent services?
Well, I think one way this needs to be handled is expanding access. And I've spoken to a few people up here, some legislators, some people with the VA, and I kind of get the same answer. It's very similar. Is New Hampshire doesn't have the same tax base as Massachusetts. That is true. But that doesn't mean there isn't a way to expand access. So again, as far as I know, there's about 12 veterans agents that work for the state. Let's say they expanded their workforce to 24. This is an idea I've been throwing out there, trying to just talk to different people if we can make it a thing. Maybe in the more rural states, this could work. Where every city and town hall, you have a small room where you can close the door, kind of like, privacy sort of thing. Cause somebody doesn't want to talk about their PT and things that happen with an open door. or medical issues. But a little room with just a computer, a printer, and a scanner. All right, you hit that button, you go into a queue, you end up talking to a VSO. You see them on the screen, just a video chat like this. You go through the whole claim with them. They hit print on the 2122. You sign it, you stick it in the scanner, you send it right over to them. They fill out the disability claim form for whatever your disabilities are. They fill it out. They hit print. It comes to you. You sign it. You stick it in the scanner. It goes right back to them. And they upload them and submit them directly to the VA. That would expand access to every city and town. Even though you don't have a physical veterans agent there, you have a place you can go to talk to a veterans agent directly, locally.
Awesome. All right. That all having been said, we're coming up on the hour and a half time almost. It's time for me to turn into a pumpkin. I want to thank you very much, Ken, for all of your help, all your assistance, and the information. And I also want to thank you for doing the work that needs to be done, that is deserved by so many people that are there. And I certainly hope more of them reach out to you, and so that they can get the assistance that is needed. Politicking with Mr. B. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for information about veteran services, probably the first place you could do would be either, as you had said, Ken, like a VFW or a group of that nature, or also your local city or town hall should have information about it.
Well, I would
correct?
say probably the first start. Yeah, I mean, check out the American Legion, check out the VFW, see if they have somebody there who can take care of claims. Otherwise, just go into Google or whatever search engine you have, and just type in whatever your state and then veterans agent, and it should bring you to your state's website and tell you where the veterans agents in your state are.
Outstanding. Ken, I want to thank you very much for all of your time and for your information. This has shown a very bright light on something that has been in the darkness for quite a while, and I certainly hope that it continues to enlighten people. I'm Mr. B. This is Politicking with Mr. B. If you like this, share this, talk about it with your friends. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all again next Wednesday with another Politicking with Mr. B. Have a good night, everyone.
You have just watched an FFN Network production.